Hello again, and welcome to our second Messy Church at Home. I don't know if any of you have researched your family tree, those who went before you. This is our Richards Family Bible. It's very big. And right in the front are the names of the people who bought the Bible and started to add their family to it. Here's the first name, Charles Mansfield, born 1836. And then family members. There are even some old photographs. Many people draw their family out as a tree. And that is the link to our Messy Church theme this week. We're thinking about making a Jesse tree. A Jesse tree is often made at Easter time to remember Jesus' family tree. First of all, you'll need to go outside into your garden or into a wood and cut a branch. This is a branch of a hazel tree. I brought it in and stood it in a jug of water. Gradually over the days, the leaves are coming out. This is the tree I'm going to decorate. These are the materials that you're going to need. First of all, you'll need egg shapes. You can buy cut out, these are foam egg shapes. But if you haven't got those, you can use the templates that we've put up on the Benefice website and photocopy crosses and eggs. And then you'll be able to cut them out and colour them yourself. If you've got coloured card, that makes a good back to it. But don't worry if you haven't, just use what you have at home. There's my egg shape. Now, on this side, you're going to draw a picture from the Old Testament. That's the story of God's people before Jesus was born. So look through your Bible. Here's a very first children's Bible with lots of pictures. Find a story that you like and then draw a picture that's a clue to your story. I wonder whether you will be able to guess this one and the character in the story. I think I'm going to need blue for the sea, because this story happens at sea. And now my character. Who do you think that is? The animal is a big clue, isn't it? It's from the story of Jonah, who got swallowed by a whale. And that's one of the stories in the Old Testament. When you've finished your picture clue, you need to glue it onto the Easter egg, or a card one if you don't have any foam shapes, with a little loop of ribbon to hang it on the tree. There, I'm putting the picture over the glue And then you can decorate the other side in an Easter way. Here are some other ones I've decorated for Easter. I wonder whether you can guess any of these. Now this is a lady. She's gathering grain, and her name was Ruth, and she was the grandmother of Jesse, who we've named the tree after. What's on this Easter egg? Ah, that's very topical. It's a rainbow. There's lots of those around our villages. But it actually comes from a Bible story about Noah building an ark. That's a very unhappy looking man with spots over him, and he's been asked to go and wash himself in the river to be healed. His name was Naaman, and he was healed by Elisha the prophet. Elisha was one of Jesus' descendants. What else have we? Ah, this story has got a ladder in and angels going up and down the ladder, and at the bottom there's a man asleep. That's a story near the beginning of the Bible about Jacob, who was running away and had a very special dream about a ladder to heaven. I'll just show you a couple more because you'll come up with lots of ideas. Ah, that one is one of the first stories in the Bible. There is an apple and a snake. Can you guess that one? Adam and Eve. Oh, and this one, I put lots of stars on this one, on a dark sky. And that reminds me of Father Abraham. He was a very old man and had no children. But God showed him all the stars in the sky and said, one day you will have as many descendants in your family as you can see stars in the sky. And do you know what? Jesus was one of those descendants. So that needs to go on your Jesse tree too. There are lots of stories in the Bible. Your Bible might look different than this, but I'm sure you can find lots of picture clues.
Once upon a mountain top, 3 little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold treasure, he said. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. I want to be a big, strong sailing ship, he said. I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. I don't want to leave this mountain top at all, she said. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. Years passed, The rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, 3 woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. "Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest," thought the first tree. "I shall hold wonderful treasure." The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It's perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. "Now I shall sail mighty waters," thought the second tree. "I shall be a strong ship fit for kings." The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered. And with a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard. But no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat. Too small and too weak to sail an ocean or even a river, he was taken to a little lake. Every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in the lumber yard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountain top and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The 3 trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby into the feed box. "I wish I could make a cradle for him," her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. "This manger is beautiful," she said. And suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveller and his friends crowded into an old fishing boat. The traveller fell asleep as the second tree sailed quietly out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and the rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hands and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun. And suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world.
Once you have finished all your eggs and crosses and decorated them, you can hang them on your Jessie tree and perhaps stand it in a window, and then you can use it to play a game. Maybe you are speaking to your grandparents via FaceTime or Zoom. If so, why don't you take eggs off the Jessie tree, show them the picture and ask them what Bible story or what character it represents. See how many they can get right. I hope you enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you next week.